down, here are some changes I would like to see for Smash Ultimate universally, for specifically patch 3.0, and why I think they would make the game better. Starting off, I would like to see buffering reduced by 2 frames, roughly across the board. It could be 1 frame, 2, 3, it's not that big of a deal, but essentially Smash Ultimate compared to previous incarnations of Smash actually has the most overall input lag or a buffer compared to previous games, and while there are certain benefits that come specifically with the new buffer system, such as a lot of attack cancel stuff and punishes in neutral game, a lot of frame perfect options out of wake up situations, and being able to create strings and movement patterns and options that otherwise literally would not exist in previous games, that's cool. But you can accomplish that by having 1 or 2 less frames of input lag, shortening down all the possible series of interactions that can be buffered, while also speeding the game up naturally would make the game feel better because it'd be faster. It would feel like taking the training weights off after a long day, and of course you have the thing where ideally a lot less inputs would get deleted and things would more honestly represent what you're trying to do. Next up, I would like to see the return of perfect pivots. This one's rather simple, really. Looking in the context of Smash Ultimate's current dashing mechanics, there's a lot of flexibility with like run-up options and things like that, and that's great. But it can be particularly hard to microspace with a lot of your grounded options effectively because of the fact that if you try and say run this way and then immediately run this way to say turn around, it just makes you run again instead of stop and do something else. And characters just having a greater variety of movement options and ways to express themselves while also adding better options for grounded microspacing would make it to where a lot of the metagame's dependence on certain kinds of moves, especially like Nair-driven characters and what have you, would have to be a little more honest with how they space themselves, and it would just force more honesty from everyone in the game, which I think is a good thing. And it would fit really cleanly in the context of how the current dash mechanics work, so I don't see why not. Next up, in a similar line, bring back shield dropping. Obviously, I think it's good that disadvantage in this game across the board is quite strong, kind of akin to a more traditional fighter, and I think that's great. But something I would like to see as well is to bring back shield dropping, as it just, again, it goes back to the perfect pivoting example where you have a greater variety of options, you have more ways of expressing yourself. It does more to facilitate a greater skill gap because it's always just good to have mechanics that reward you for being a good player. And there are a lot of times where you're effectively in molasses if you're stuck in shield on a platform in this game compared to, I don't know, literally every other Smash game. And so seeing that brought back more in line with the rest of the games in the series would just be nice. And that's by far the simplest way to do it, especially since it's literally in every other Smash game. Next up, I would like to see something that's a little more of a quality of life change across the board, and that is a stage hazard toggle on the stage select screen. Instead of making stage hazards a toggle to where you just put it in the rule set and then you have to do all this other stuff and you have to make all these different rule sets, yada 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 yada. Instead, it would just be something that's literally on the stage select screen. There's some extra space, so suppose while you're selecting a stage, you can just turn stage hazards on or off, and it's literally just a button right there, just the same size as the stage select buttons you push to, say, pick FD or Battlefield or literally anywhere. It would be simple, and it would hopefully, assuming they fixed FOD and other similar stage problems, might open up the stage list a little bit more too, and we can bring back like FOD, for instance, or I know a lot of people want to bring back Smashville as another good example. And then you wouldn't have to worry about hazard rule sets or anything like that. It'd be a lot easier to mediate things and have as many good stages as possible. In another similar line, I'd like to see short hop macro cancels to be something that's toggleable in custom controls. Perhaps make it a default option akin to how tilt stick jumping is the default option in, say, normal controls, but being able to turn it off to where you could do immediate full hop aerials and not necessarily when you don't necessarily need that little thing to help you with your short hop aerials. It just gives people more options, and you're not sacrificing any because it's still the default option, which is clearly a design decision. So by making it the default option, you make it to where all the people who would have difficulties doing short hop aerials would still be able to use it to their heart's content and all that good stuff, but you wouldn't have to worry about literally deleting possible options from a person's repertoire just because this thing exists that doesn't let you do full hop aerials and other similar things. Next up, I would like to see a slight lag increase in two defensive options, spot dodges and neutral air dodges. As a whole, defensive states and defensive options are pretty well balanced in this game, in the sense that everything is very punishable in itself, but provided you're smart about which ones you use, you actually have a very large flexibility in what options you can use in almost any given situation, but all of them are very flawed inherently. So as long as you're smart about it, you can get out of almost any situation, but it forces you to be perfect, which is, I think, great. It rewards skill, it rewards smart decision making, and it overall facilitates more aggressive gameplay, which is, I think, a generally good thing for a game to have, is to inherently reward that, but also still have plenty of flexible defensive options. But there's two problems with this. Neutral air dodges, and specifically their landing lag, and regular spot dodges are disproportionately safe compared to the vast majority of other options. And so just for the sake of making it more consistent and also allowing for less degenerate abuse of these things would be a good thing. There's a lot of silly stuff where spot dodges being so much better than almost everything else means you can kind of spam them in neutral sometimes, and it works. It's a good strategy. Or a good example for neutral air dodges is if you're a character with like a good fast fall, for instance, and you just fast fall and then neutral air dodge, you can literally act instantly. So being able to just turn around disadvantage so freely and so effortlessly and then have frame advantage on someone for hitting you is dumb. And the simplest way to do that is to give it a little bit of ending lag and to make spot dodges slightly longer as well. Whatever the current directional air dodge landing lag is, suppose you could make neutral air dodge landing lag, let's say half of that. Because obviously the whole point of directional air dodges is that they're supposed to be more versatile than neutral ones. And so you pay for that versatility by it taking a little bit longer to recover from it. That seems reasonable. And instead of choosing some arbitrary number, just make it exactly half the lag of directional air dodges. Simple, concise, logical. Oh yes, one last thing that I was about to forget is that I'd like to see it to where you can retain your previous character from the previous game going into the next game. This would be quite simple to do as well. Obviously, instead of having to re-choose your character literally every single game of every single match, it would just keep your character where it was. This one's a bit of a no-brainer. It just makes things easier. Either way, hope you guys enjoyed this, found it interesting, perhaps saw some things that you might not have thought about really before. If you enjoyed it, feel free to like the video, subscribe to my channel, all that good stuff. You can follow me at Twitter at twitter.com/fatalityfalcon. You can follow me on twitch.tv/fatalityfalcon, and if you're really feeling like a homie, I guess you could drop me a Twitch Prime sub or something like that. That'd be cool, I guess. And yeah, that's it. Hope you guys enjoyed.